saying? There's some three takeaways. That's what we
When we talk about AI in the context of storytelling, AI is the sum of human creativity, right? The AI knows nothing. It only knows what it's been fed.
Nog steeds staat er Three Takeaways. Heb je het nou echt zo genoemd?
Yes.
Echt?
Yes. Shit.
Nou, welkom dus bij een nieuwe aflevering van de Three Takeaways. De podcast waarin we de toekomst van ons vak als mediamakers gaan verkennen. Maar de toekomst, dat is nogal een breed begrip, hè?
Ja, want we hebben inmiddels heel wat denktanks, werkgroepen, conferenties, boeken, artikelen. Maar wij dachten, we gaan het anders doen. We gaan wat grip bieden.
Ja, en dat gaan we doen door de meest interessante innovators, de makers, de strategen en visionairs te vragen. Welke 3 dingen over media-innovatie moeten we weten om klaar te zijn voor de toekomst?
En vandaag hebben wij visionair Lars Bastholm. Hoor je zo wat meer over, maar heel kort zullen we eerst onszelf even voorstellen. Ik ben Jolien, ik ben journalist, ondernemer en ook mediastrateeg.
En ik ben Merlijn en ik maak films, ik maak programma's en ik hou me bezig met media-innovatie.
Maar nu eerst naar Lars. Lars heeft zijn eigen creatieve AI-adviesbureau en hij is een van de mede-oprichters van de Scandinavian Creative AI Summit. En daarvoor werkte hij onder andere voor Google in de Zoo, noemden ze dat. Dat is een soort lab waarin je bij Google kon experimenteren met data en wat je daarmee kunt doen in het kader van storytelling. Hij heeft ook nog een achtergrond in filmstudies. Hij weet alles van technologie en storytelling. Lars, welkom.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Lars. And let's start with the dilemma. From now on, you're only allowed to watch AI-generated content, or you're not allowed to ever use generative AI in your creative work again.
And I have to choose one of the two.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I will probably choose the first one then, because I think it's possible to make whatever you can think of in AI. So eventually I would get to watch anything I wanted to if I were clever enough in figuring out how to make it.
Okay.
I think that actually leads into your first takeaway, because your first takeaway is AI could soon outpace human creativity, making traditional content creators obsolete. So maybe we could have guessed your answer.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a provocation, right, to say that, because what is really happening is that you're seeing the interplay between talented storytellers and AI, where the real magic is happening. There's no magic button, but I just came from a conference at the Danish Film School where there's a lot of talented filmmakers from around the world talking about how they were using this new suite of tools to create content. And it's fairly obvious that, if you know how to tell a story in traditional mediums, you also know how to tell a story using AI tools.
Yes, but your takeaway is somewhat of a warning, I'd say. AI could soon outpace human creativity, which makes me wonder, do you think some parts are maybe still always supposed to be done by a human or not?
I mean, when you look at it, really, when we talk about AI in the context of storytelling, AI is the sum of human creativity, right? The AI knows nothing. It only knows what it's been fed. And it scraped the internet for content from all over the world by any type of film and content maker in general. So it knows what it knows.
And does that mean that it is a mediocre thing? Like the information is, mediocre?
It's all been thought of before. It's not new.
Yeah, but it's a sum up. It's like, it's not the best.
I think if you were to ask Quentin Tarantino whether his work is original or if it's the sum of all the things he's watched and heard and seen, he would probably say that, of course, he's impacted by all the things he's seen before. He just gives it a spin that's uniquely his own tone. And that's the thing about ideas, right? I think you could argue that every idea has a father and a mother. Nothing is completely independent of what has come before. Some people say there's only really 7 stories in the world that are just told in various different ways. And you see the same thing with AI, right? Because if it has all the information of the stories that have gone before, then of course some of it will be like, oh, actually I can recognize this from somewhere else and it won't be entirely original. But as storytellers, what we bring to the table as humans is our own experiences, right? neither of the three of us in this room have the exact same set of experiences in life or what we've read, seen, or heard. So we will always have slightly different takes on even the most archetypical and unoriginal stories. So we can probably sit down and say, let's tell a tragedy about two young lovers, and the three of us will come up with three completely different stories. So in that sense, we are original no matter what.
But would you say that AI is disruptive in storytelling, in the way we tell stories?
I think it's easy to make it a lazy button. That's the one thing that is my biggest concern, is that instead of, because writing a story is hard work. It really, I mean, everybody I know who's a writer, most of them hate writing. They love having written, but they hate writing.
Yeah.
And I think that's very true, because it is painful to crank out a good story. And most people who write are their own worst critics. So they'll write something and go, sucks. So it's very easy to be like, all right, I know the overall arc of my story. I'm just going to chuck it into an AI and see if I can't get something back there. Then I have literally managed to do something without putting too much effort in. So that's my concern, is that it becomes the easy button.
You also write yourself, I believe.
I do, yeah.
So maybe you tried. I'm wondering, for us too, it's easy to keep saying like, oh, we should try, we should use it. And we do. I know I've experienced it, but I'm curious about you. Did you ever feel uncomfortable by the outcome, something that you got back?
I mean, I felt uncomfortable in the sense that sometimes it thought of stuff that I wouldn't myself have thought of in a million years. And I was like, oh shit, does that mean I'm dumb? Or, not a good writer? Or does that just mean that it literally played through the millions of different ideas and just happened to come up with something that I didn't think of? And in that sense, I think it could be inspiring in that, all right, I feel stuck here. I need a little bit of sparring. And it's like talking to a really good brainstorming partner at times. It's actually really enjoyable. But again, it's in the interplay between the human and the machine.
I think that takes us to takeaway number 2. Personalized AI-driven content risks creating echo chambers, isolating audiences in their own preferences and biases. So, help us out. Mm-hmm. What do you have to say about that? Well, because I think it's very important that we address this.
It is important. And, there's an election in the U.S. I'm a dual U.S.-Denmark citizen, so I do have some skin in the game here in terms of the outcome of the election.
Yeah.
Many people are saying that the reason why OpenAI hasn't released Sora is their image generation tool, is because of the election. And some of those tools from both Google and OpenAI will probably become available after the election. But they wanted to ensure that content could not be created through their engines that would influence the election in some way, shape, or form. And that's partly the problem, right? Is that it is so easy to create things that look relatively truthful and that can bend people's minds in one direction or the other.
And we still don't have any solutions for marking content like that, right?
That becomes a real problem, that you don't really know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already an incredibly fragmented society, and it's happening not just in the US, but all over the world, that if you choose to believe something, you will be able to find people and content that proves that what you're believing is true.
So is there a role for publishers and, broadcasting stations that we can put to use? And do you have an idea of what it should look like?
If I did, I would build it and then I would license it to every single news station in the world and become very, very rich.
Yeah. You don't have any idea in how we can control that, or how we should handle these biases or the possibility of biases?
Honestly, I don't think it's possible. I think we have to figure out how to live with the fact that we have to question everything we see and hear. And that just requires a shift of mindset where it's like, from the starting point almost has to be that this is probably not true until I've verified it from other sources.
But you think we should do that as a consumer ourselves, or
journalists
could be? Yeah, journalists should
do that,
be.
But maybe they're not trusted anymore as well. Or
I mean, I would love for that to happen. I'm not sure that people haven't started listening to journalists from their various camps as well, to a point where it doesn't really matter whether a journalist verifies something, because maybe the trust in the journalist is not there. Mm-hmm. So if we could all start trusting journalism more, that would probably be great. But since a lot of journalism would probably be written by bots as well in the future, just to make sure that the same point gets emphasized over and over and over again by the people who want that particular point to come out. It's challenging.
We're doomed.
We are. But we
are.
But we can still podcast, so
That's true.
There's that.
Yeah, this is going to be very dystopian.
Yeah, because I kind of want to leave our listeners with something they can at least like hold on to, because is all hope lost? If you work for like a big publisher or a broadcaster, should you just give up? Or
No. I don't think you should at all. I think you have to lean into becoming part of the solution. And, giving up is the easiest way to ensure that you're definitely not part of the solution. I think the more you have shows about what is AI, what does AI do, here are some content pieces, let's look at how they were made, who made them, why did they make them. Good, solid, thorough investigative journalism is something that we need a lot more of.
So educate people as
Absolutely.
creators.
Because the dumber the populace is, the easier it is to tell them a story and make them believe it. So funnel a lot of money into education, do good investigative journalism, and make sure that people understand the world that they live in.
We have a discussion about this every once in a while, that I tend to think about the audience and the big gap that exists between the people that understand what AI implies and that whole big chunk of people that have no idea and that, well, they just don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
And we need to, I don't know who we is, we should take them by the hand and lead them through the valley of AI.
I mean, it's important to remember also that I think it was in March where I saw a survey that said only about 50% of everyone has even spent time messing around with AI. And out of those 50%, maybe 10, 15% have tried asking ChatGPT 3 questions. And it was mostly who is, and insert your own name, and tell me 5 things about something that interests me.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, that's AI. Okay, cool. And then they move on with their lives.
Yeah.
So again, comes back to the knowledge and understanding that you require in order to make informed decisions.
I have one more question about this takeaway, because you mentioned that maybe Sora was delayed because it shouldn't be a part of the campaigns. But maybe if we flip it upside down, what would an ultimate AI-powered campaign look like? What if we, use it for good? What would that look like?
Then I think what you would do is you would dive deep into all the micro issues that people care about. So it wouldn't just be about the 5 big topics that everyone cares about, the economy, abortion in the US, immigration, etc. But it would also be about the local society that you live in. It would be about your local school. It would be about pretty much any topic you can imagine. And then it would be filtered down to you based on your interests and your concerns. So instead of making 5 commercials, you might make 50,000 commercials and send out to the relevant recipients. So it would be a much broader campaign, because you can do that effectively and you can do it financially, which you never would be able to otherwise.
I'm asking because maybe that's also an interesting angle for people who are now doing mass media. Do you think there's something there?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be real mass, right? Mass media in its ultimate expression, where it's almost individualized communication, down to the very, very finer points of whatever people are thinking, or whatever you want people to think about.
Interesting.
Takeaway number 3. The ethical lines are blurred. Should AI-generated art, music, and writing be considered original creations or mere reflections of existing data?
I mean, that's the big conversation that is happening right now, right?
Yeah.
Where there's lawsuits of various kinds where people are trying to figure out how do you get compensated if you obviously contributed to the training of these models and they wouldn't have the ability to do what they do without that training data. I think that the big data companies should probably contribute 10% of their revenue or something along those lines to share between all the people who have contributed data to these functions, because the machines wouldn't function if they hadn't.
No, but you did, and I did, and Jolien did. We all contributed in some sort of way.
In some sort of way. And the challenge becomes, how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you distribute that money? Now, I have a suggestion, which is to create a massive fund for artists in general. So you can apply for projects that you want to do and get money from that fund. So we basically use the machines to support human creativity.
But then you get this big mass of people who say, I'm an artist, I make drawings.
Well, it would be like any other type of foundation where there's review boards from various projects to figure out who gets what. But imagine the amount of money that would come in. Mm-hmm. It would be like a richest art-focused foundation in the entire world in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
There's no putting, we can't put it back in the bag and just toss it in the river and forget all about it. That's not going to happen. So we have to be proactive and productive in the way we look at it.
So how can we as media creators prepare ourselves for that next step that AI is going to make? It's going to be smarter, it's going to be more clever, it's going to be more artistic, it's going to be a Swiss pocket knife. How are we going to use that big tool for the next 10 years, 20 years? And what will media look like? I mean, I understand this is a big question, but I'm trying to get this image of what media will look like.
So in 1995, I started working with the internet. And I started by going down to my local bookstore and I bought the Internet Yellow Pages, which was a listing of all the websites at the time that you could visit. And then I basically started from an end saying, all right, what's going on the internet? It was barely functional. I don't think we're that far removed from that state in AI right now. It looks a lot more advanced, but it's still the Stone Age. But the evolution is happening so fast that it's almost like every 6 months the possibilities and the technology doubles in a sense, where it took maybe 10 years for the internet to become completely mainstream. This is going so much faster. So we're talking about it now in terms of us using it now. But if we start thinking about where it's going to be, I have no idea what's going to be in 20 years. But I have a reasonable idea of where it's going to be in maybe 2 years. I mean, it's first of all, it's going to be so much more user-friendly because it's been very nerdy. So you'll basically be talking to your AI the way you talk to, your friends, your family, your dog, whatever. Maybe a little smarter than your dog, unless you have a very smart dog. But, in general, it's so much easier to say something out loud than it is to compose it.
But can you create a perspective considering media and output?
Like maybe when you step into one of these offices in 10 years, or maybe 2 years, you said 2. 2 was doable.
Yeah, 2 was doable.
What will we see? What are people doing? What are they creating? For whom?
I mean, I imagine that they're going to have so much data that it's going to be easier to determine what will people actually watch and listen to and hear. And given that they can do things cheaper and faster, then they can service their constituency with more content, more diverse content, for the same amount of money that they spend today. That is the best case scenario, right? And the AI agents will actually help you find the content that you want to see. At least that's the best case scenario. We should end on a high note, right?
Yes.
I think we should. But it was my final question, like, what are we watching? What are we listening to? What are we... The funny thing is that I just heard Ezra talk about creativity.
It was about the easy button that you explained.
Yeah, the magic button.
Yeah, people will be satisfied with a mediocre result as long as it kind of does the job.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand...
That sucks, Lars.
It totally sucks. But on the other hand, I'm going to give that a little bit of a positive spin because I was talking to a company called Pseudo-Write not too long ago, and they've essentially created this system called Story World, where they help people finish their novel. Okay. That's basically what they do. They don't write the novel for you, but they help you figure out how to take your ideas and turn it into the book you always wanted to write. And, that's wonderful because I'm sure there's lots of people sitting out there who've always dreamt of telling a specific story, but couldn't quite figure out how to do it or how to structure it or how to get it down on paper. And if you can get that little bit of an assist that will bring, the next amazing story into the world with a little bit of AI assistance, I think that's great.
Do you have more examples like that?
No, that's the only one there is.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge that we are facing right now, considering AI and with a little note on media creation?
I mean, probably the biggest challenge is sorting the wheat from the chaff, right? Because because it gets easier to make content, more people will make content, and there's going to be an insane amount of mediocre content out there. And it won't always be super easy to tell what's the shit from what's the gold, right? So I think we're already, if you're looking at YouTube, you know, it's easy to enter into a little corner of YouTube and get stuck with something that's not particularly good, but that's just where the algorithm takes you. And if content constantly keeps getting produced to service that particular niche, then that's where you're stuck.
And what will be the thing that will convince me as a consumer? Will it be quality, or will it be authenticity, or what will draw me into that tunnel of content?
I mean, ultimately, I think originality wins the day, right? When something has a unique spin or a unique twist in the tale or a different point of view, and that's where, I keep back to what I was saying originally, it's in the interplay between the AI tools and the human ingenuity that all the really good stuff's going to come.
Thank you, Lars.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dit was hem dan, de eerste aflevering van Three Takeaways, de podcast. Die maken we in opdracht van Media Campus NL.
En dat deden we vanaf de Dutch Media Week, waar Lars Bastholm ook een van de sprekers was. Wil je meer lezen en zien over de toekomst van contentcreatie? Ga dan naar mediacampus.nl.
En we zeggen het er maar even bij, deze hele podcast is AI-vrij, behalve de tune, die hebben we gemaakt met Suno.
Wil je iets kwijt aan ons? Of zou je bijvoorbeeld graag een specifieke gast in de podcast willen horen? Stuur dan een mailtje naar podcast@mediacampus.nl.